Moya light, Moya bright. Welcome, guys, to Moya podcast. Thank you so much for all the support you're giving the channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you're going to get here the education that you're not going to get in schools. As usual, we have got our dedication to Sahel and to the West African region. It has now moved to Sahel Tuesdays. Hopefully, you guys got the message last week that we're moving from Sahel Thursdays to Sahel Tuesdays. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m., we have geopolitical conversations just so that we understand what's going on. You know, we only know usually our own politics, but obviously Africa is a big family. So we have to now start learning how to engage other countries in Africa, understand their politics, because we are one people. The only thing that divided us was the scramble for Africa, where the continent was divided into pieces for the French and for the British. As usual, I'm not alone on Sahel Tuesdays. I'm with Mam Kani Litchfield Tshabalala. Good evening, Mam Kani.
Hi, Ntsiki. Hello, Moya subscribers.
We are with OladeleDosunmu. Good evening.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
And tonight we are joined by Nduku, who's the host of Kumbukeni. I see on your screen there. Sorry. Now you didn't give me your surname there. Hi, Nduku.
Habari gani. Hello, Ntsiki. Good to be here. Habari gani, karibuni. Habari gani.
So, guys, these are your teachers for tonight. Tonight we thought that we should unpack the scourge of assassinations. And ironically, you know, we were thinking about the fact that I can't think of any white people we assassinate, but we obviously can think of a lot that we assassinate. So maybe we start with you, Mam Kani, and then go as usual about your thoughts on how African leaders are assassinated and what our response to our own leaders.
Thank you, Ntsiki. I think if you go to Google, funny enough, and you say African leaders assassinated, they actually give them to you by country. So that's why I was opposed earlier on to include diaspora like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. They are on a movie set, you know. These ones, I was shocked. There's so many we do not know. They give them to you by country. But I was also just shocked to see that under the list of South Africa, Steve Biko does not appear. That was just like, wow, okay. But I think what I want to highlight is for every assassination of a leader, a revolutionary leader that takes place in this continent and in the diaspora, as a matter of fact, there's always the hand of the CIA or the MI6 or the French Secret Service or Mossad. There's always the collaboration of the countries that we call the West, depending on which leader is being assassinated. Obviously, if it is in a former French colony, the French Secret Service and the Belgian one would take the lead if it's a former Belgian colony. So yeah, I think that would be my opening.
Okay, my opening thoughts are basically, like Mama Kate said, Africa has everything the rest of the world needs. But sadly, instead of them coming to us and asking from us, like civilized people, they want to control it. And the way they're going to control it is basically trying to get rid of leaders who are saying, you know what, deal with us on equal terms. Don't deal with us like, you know, we're nobodies. And this is basically what happens to the leaders who stand up to the West, and then you can see what happens to them. So we're going to unpack that. So that's just my opening salvo.
So yeah, you two are setting a standard with your short openings. I was recently watching, I'm going to take a different route, still the same goal, but a different route. I was recently watching the movie Wicked. And with the lens I'm using to look at life now, saw Wicked for more than just the Disney movie that it is, right? We're told that Elphaba, the wicked of the West, the witch of the West is the bad witch, and then we're told Glinda, the witch of the East, is the good witch. But when you look at it, the whole time, this is me yelling at the TV, Glinda is a Karen. Glinda is a Karen. I kept saying, Karen. Because Glinda is upholding the system of imperialism, right? The Oz, the system of exploitation. And she's stopping Elphaba from rebelling against the system. She's saying, stop it, right? What are you doing? Stop it. Elphaba has found out that Oz is a fake system. The Wizard of Oz has no powers, and Elphaba has the powers. And the Wizard of Oz is using Elphaba's powers to do the criminal activities that he wants to do, right? Take the voices from the animals, control the people, imprison the animals that are not listening, and all that. And so what the professor does when this happens, when Elphaba decides to stand up against the Wizard of the Oz and Oz, the authorities of Oz, she comes out in the balcony and yells to the people, the green one, Elphaba, she is evil. Do not listen to anything she says. So that there is our revolutionaries. That there is our African leaders. When they stand up and find out about the imperialist system, the colonial system, and they speak against it, they now come out to tell us the truths that they found out about it. When our revolutionaries come out to tell us the truth, they're painted as villains. Recently, I believe it's the head of AFRICOM, again, I forget the name, my brother Oladele does remember, and I'll go back to Google it so that I can put it in here, was presenting to Congress
Hey, it's as if YouTube knows that our sessions
What's
are quite
going on?
fast. Yeah, YouTube knows that we've got quite juicy sessions. Nduku, we've
is
lost you
that
there.
is that me who
There
was
we go.
lost? My
Yes, there
goodness.
we go. Got you.
Yes. So where was I?
Gosh, you were actually still right at the beginning.
All right. So so Elphaba comes out and tells the people, yes, I had finished the analogy and was back to our revolutionaries. And so yes, the US, I think it's the head of AFRICOM, who presented to Congress recently and said that the question by the congressman was very tailored to uphold the narrative that they were trying to push, right? Apparently, I'm paraphrasing, their leaders who are holding on to wealth for themselves while exploiting their people. Could you tell us more about it? Something like that. And then the African leader goes on to say, yes, I will give an example of Traoré. Of all the people, he doesn't give Museveni, he doesn't give Ruto, right? All their puppets. He doesn't give all the people that they are using to hold on to wealth and exploit the people. He gives Traoré, the person who's actually helping their people. So this is what the United States, and they do this, they did this with Muammar Gaddafi, so we should all be alerted by this, because they're definitely preparing to attack, and they're using this as justification. So this is how I'm going to start. Thank you.
All right, so we are totally ready for the lessons. I mean, can we get some examples on some of the great African leaders that have been assassinated and some of their history? Our audience is quite young, so they don't quite know who the sellouts are and what the story is. So I don't know, who do you want to start with, Mam Kanye? Oh, you're muted, Mama Kanye. Mam Kanye, you're muted. Let me unmute you here.
Yeah, I have unmuted. So yeah, I had to switch to my phone because I have Wi-Fi issues.
Who do you want to
You
start
arrest
with?
somebody in the Eastern Cape. which is how many Ks roughly, because you've done the Eastern
It's about 900 kilometers, 800 to 900 kilometers.
East London area. You arrest them, you torture them, you beat them to a pulp, butter rifle, and then you load them onto a police the back of a van because you are going to transport them in that state and main roads, and you are hoping that
Ma'am Kanye, you know your network is terrible. Do you mind restarting your phone and maybe rejoining? In the meantime, Oladele, maybe you can start with the...
you're still in a medical condition that is
Oh, okay. Okay. See, we've lost Ma'am Kanye there, so maybe Oladele...
Yeah, okay. I'm going to start with the most famous one, and I'm going to start with Patrice Lumumba. He was the president of Congo in 1960. Lumumba was a Pan-Africanist who had a vision and had an alignment to basically end the hegemonic control in its country, DRC. He basically, and this is basically what happened to him, the fact that he was Pan-Africanist, and probably Nduku could give you more history to this, the fact that he was Pan-Africanist, he was basically assassinated in terms of calling out, going against the hegemonic powers. The worst thing about this was, but the CIA basically were in collusion with this. They basically were instigators to get rid of this person, including the Belgians, because obviously Belgium was in control of the DRC in those times. Obviously, the US was because of the minerals were involved, but they, in collusion with the CIA and the Belgian government, basically got rid of Lumumba. And what they did was what did they do to his body? His body was decapitated, basically. It was decapitated. It was basically put in acid. It was put in acid. And what did he do? Simply because he says, guys, we can control our destiny. Just leave us alone. We can deal with you as equals, but let us control our resources. Let's control our destiny. But as always, the West wants to control what's not theirs. So consequently, they killed him. And that was Patrice Lumumba. It was 1960. I'll give you another one. Kwame Nkrumah, one of the fathers of Pan-Africanism. He, with the Marcus Garveys, the W.D. Du Bois, basically, because Nkrumah went to school in the US. While he was in the US, he met the Pan-African leaders, and basically the thought of Pan-Africanism came from the US, and he brought it back to Africa. And he had these thoughts in 1957, by the time they got independence, and they were working together with these Pan-Africanists basically to bring United Africa together. What got the West, the CIA, to Nkrumah was the fact that he wrote a book. The neo-colonial, can you name that book, Nduku? There was a particular book that he wrote that basically put together exactly what he's going to do or how they're going to work to make Africa work. That book caught the attention of the CIA. The moment they read that book, they thought this is a massive threat. I can't remember the name of the book, but as soon as I find it, I'm going to put it in the chat. But this is the book that he wrote that basically stated exactly what needs to be done, how they need to work together with the other African countries. And basically, the moment they saw that, that's basically where they started to basically unshackle, basically get to him. So Kwame Nkrumah was...
Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism.
That's the one. So it basically was overthrown in 1966. Okay, so it was the first president for Ghana, 1957, but they got rid of him. They overthrew him. The reason they overthrew him is basically because he was trying to unite African leaders together. And this is another example of what they do. When we have African leaders who have the interest of Africans at heart, for some reason, The imperialists, the neo-colonialists don't want our African leaders to do our own bidding. So those are the two leaders that we have at the that have highlighted. As everybody seems to be gone. Are you guys all there? So I have two leaders there. Do you want me to go with another one?
I'm here.
Okay, I'm gonna go for the third one, and this is the most recent one. And this basically was revealed through a congressman in about a week ago, who said that Gaddafi tried to unite Africa. Gaddafi tried to unite Africa. Basically trying to have a currency go backed by Africans, and also unite Africans together so that we can be sovereign away from the hegemonic powers. So in there, and this is the thing about these people, they eventually tell the truth. So one of the congressmen who was sent to Libya came back and told the Congress, this is basically what happened. Gaddafi actually was going to surrender. He wanted to surrender, but they didn't want him to surrender. They wanted to kill him. And his offense, again, trying to unite Africa so that we basically can control our resources. So those are three examples of leaders who have held up or who have stood up against hegemonic powers. Today, if you look at the puppet leaders that we have today, most of them are compromised. Most of them are scared. Most of them are sellouts. So at the moment in Africa, I'll say to you, there's only three leaders who are against the colonial power, and that's Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Every other African leader that you see today is a sellout and is compromised. So it's about time we hold our leaders accountable. I'm just going to start with those three. I'll let the others chime in.
Oh, you may jump in, ladies. You may jump in. Nduku, do you have any leaders that you checked out?
I did. I was going to say more about Patrice Lumumba's, just to show the role of the West. Can you hear me? You can hear me. All right. Okay. So the funny thing is, I shared a link to a the New Yorker's article that they have written about the true story behind. Let me get the exact title. It says the real story behind Patrice Lumumba's assassination. But here goes Western criminals and how they phrase the stories when they tell them, right? It begins by saying, "It's now up to you, gentlemen." This is a quotation. "It's now up to you," open quote, "It's now up to you, gentlemen, to show that we were right to trust you." End of quote. So King Baudouin of Belgium declared in the Congolese capital of Leopoldville, as they're handing over Congo back to them. But to them, it's like they're doing the Congolese a favor. Now we are trusting you, Congo people, to take your nation. And it's up to you to show us that we were right to trust you. So Lumumba is sitting in the midst of this and rightfully so pissed off. And he comes up and he gives a speech that says, "You're not doing I'm paraphrasing, "You're not doing us a favor. We are liberating ourselves, and this is our nation." And so the prince, was it the prince at the time or the king, gets insulted, who was in the audience. And that's where the planning of his death begins. I'm sure it had started before, for those of you who've read the books showing the CIA putting poison in his toothpaste. He's someone in the office taking a letter to the CIA. The head of the CIA reveals how he was involved in planning the assassination. So the US and Belgium are working together, collaborating in planning this assassination. And also the French, because it shows he had what he believed was someone who was helping him interpret when he went for meetings, right? But this was an undercover agent, a CIA undercover agent, who was helping with his French translation, CIA undercover agent. And this whole time, Lumumba is thinking that this person is helping him. This goes back to what I always say. We cannot trust the foreigners when it comes to certain things that we are doing. Our leaders should not have foreign interpreters working for them and that close to them. They shouldn't, just because we understand what these people do. This is not we don't like other human beings. This is not we are being discriminatory. No, we are learning from history that we cannot trust them and we cannot include them but so far in what we are doing. So this is what happens. The people that he let close to him is who turns around and ends up participating in his assassination. So the first prime minister, he is the first prime minister of Congo, and he was executed by a firing squad led by Belgian mercenary Julian Gatt. In the transportation after he's being captured, you see him in the van, all black soldiers, sticking his letter, the speech that he read that offended the Belgian leader, sticking it in his mouth, shoving it down his mouth. This is what's happening by his own people as they're taking him now to the Belgians. And so under the command of Belgian Katangan Police Commissioner Vassecheur, I'm going to put the name in the chat so that it's Verscheure. We're identifying, we're indicting the criminals by their names. He was sentenced to death. And then the secessionist Katangan regime, right? Because again, they use our people, heavily supported by the Belgian mining conglomerate. It is not just the nations, it's the organizations too. The private sector as well is a part of this. It's not just the governments. It's the private sector the whole time is a part of this. So supported by the Belgian mining conglomerate, Union Minière du Haut Katanga facilitated Patrice Lumumba's execution. I say this, I give this information so that you all see that this is like, it's an elaborate scheme that comes against our people. And these people do not work alone. So the United States, if they decide that they're going to eliminate someone, let's say, for example, Traoré, they're going to put out propaganda. They're going to put out efforts. They're going to work with the French because they already know the French has influence there. They're going to work with the so-called terrorists that are already in Burkina Faso. They're going to work with Ivory Coast, which is what we are hearing the head of security in Burkina Faso, Sana, saying that it was these people are in Ivory Coast, these people who are continuously trying to take out the current government in Burkina Faso. So all these governments are working together, and unfortunately, it comes down to some of them are our own people, and that's the problem. And recently, Ibrahim Traoré said that the biggest crime in Burkina Faso is going to be betrayal moving forward. The biggest crime in Burkina Faso is going to be betrayal of the nation. And that's how we need to look at it. We cannot give grace to our own people who are betraying our liberation. We cannot give grace to our own people who are the ones being used to kill our leaders. They must be taken out. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's my addition to that. And I'll let everyone else speak before I continue.
Mam Kanya, I believe you were giving us the story of Steve Biko and what happened with Steve Biko.
Yeah, no, I was done. I mean, you don't torture someone, batter
We
them
didn't
to a
get you
pulp,
at all.
and then put them.
We didn't get you at all. The network was bad. So perhaps for the people that don't know the Steve Biko story, if you can break it down for us. We didn't get you at all.
Oh no, he was arrested in the Eastern Cape. You did tell us it's about 900 and something Ks to Pretoria, and which is where they were going to incarcerate him. But they tortured him first and beat him to a pulp, literally. Especially the head with the butts of rifles. And then they loaded him at the back of a car. These are policemen. They loaded him at the back of a car, and they were going to drive with him in that state, that 900 and something Ks, so they can go and read him his rights and arrest him in Pretoria. It doesn't make sense, eh? It was a recipe for disaster. It means they wanted him dead. And I think for me, what I want to point out there is that there are two ways they deal with so-called revolutionaries or revolutionaries. When you're a so-called revolutionary, they arrest you. They did that with Mandela. They'll keep you for 27 years. For as long as they know that there's a certain point at which they can break you to sell out, they will keep you. When you're like Sankara or Traoré or Steve Biko, they will kill you. When they have looked at you and they know that they cannot change your mind, then they will kill you. Because they have no use for you. They can't keep you. They know they can't change you. So that's the reason Steve Biko was killed. Chris Hani was killed because they knew they couldn't change him. They couldn't change him. They knew they couldn't change him. So that's the reason. I want to touch a bit on the Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso. And Tomboya gave his niece to Blaise Compaoré to marry. And Sankara said at the time, because he knew that Tomboya was a house nigger, he really was at the bidding of the in the West. And for sure, after Sankara is assassinated and Blaise Compaoré rules, when Captain Traoré takes power, where does Blaise Compaoré run to? Ivory Coast. So the writing is on the wall that all these reactionary forces used against Burkina Faso, it will go for Mali and it will go for Niger too. They will be based in Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast. But also for me, Ntsiki, we can't talk about this and not talk about the military bases, the constant source of danger. Because this secret service, this data collection, this radar that is on the 3 Sahel countries, that radar is run from the neighboring military bases, foreign military bases in the neighbors of the 3 Sahel states. So those military bases is not just manpower sitting in tents, it's the intelligence that is run from those bases too, that is constantly spying on the 3 countries. So, and I also just want to say, it's funny to me that there is we don't have a court, Nduku and Ntsiki and Oladele, where we have taken all the so-called Western powers, their secret service, their police, their defense, whoever was involved, who in cold blood killed and assassinated our leaders. There is no court. We just carry on. They even are proud. I mean, the CIA, the person who participated in the death of Lumumba, CIA, has come out. They come out because they know that there's no recourse to law. They come out and they say, I did it and I did it in this way and in that way. There's no recourse to law. We just carry on. And I guess that's why Bob Marley says, how long shall they kill our prophets when we stand aside and look, you know? So for me, I think that those are the issues I wanted to bring to the fore, but also to just say, with all the assassination attempts on President Traoré, Africa is not coming to a stop and saying, wait, hang on. Here is a person being wanted dead or alive. What's going on? We are not. Instead, it is so hard to be a supporter of Burkina Faso people. So hard. Ask me. I'm in South Africa. To get their people here, to get companies here to stand out and affirm, to get CEOs, to get DGs and DDGs in South Africa to come out and say we support President Traoré of the Sahel. It is hard because the government hasn't done it. So people are scared to do it as individuals, especially where they work for government, because they don't want to be taken out. So for me, it's really just heartbreaking how the DA can unashamedly tell us they support Israel, but we cannot unashamedly, as the ANC, tell the DA that we support the Sahel. So I think I'll leave it there for now, because we are 3 this week. So I try and speak less so we give each other a turn.
Okay, I'm gonna come in terms of we've given the background in terms of Patrice Lumumba. We've talked about Thomas Sankara, Makanye. Let's talk about Makanye and Thomas Sankara, Nkrumah. There's a few others, but this is how I look at what's going on our continent today. For Africa to be free, we need revolutionary leaders like Thomas Sankara and the other 3. If we carry on the way we're carrying on with the other 51 hegemonic leaders, Africa will never be free. So we need these radical leaders. We need these revolutionary leaders who are basically gonna look to the West and say, you know what, we can do for ourselves. So the fact that they want to, or there's a threat, as we saw on social media today, the AFRICOM chairman basically highlighted Thomas Ibrahim Traoré as basically stealing Burkina Faso's gold money to basically, to get a foothold in his country. Imagine that. For me, is basically how they start. They put it in the media, they sow a seed. So basically, and then they build on that. So that threat has been put out there. And this basically, I've highlighted it on my post today. We need to keep an eye on these guys, because the moment they start doing that, they know they have a target. So we, as Africans, cannot afford to let Ibrahim Traoré be assassinated. They've tried. Yeah, he's been there for 2.5 years now. He had about 18 attempts on his life. 18 so far. The question is, why is he a threat? Why do they want to get rid of this guy? And based on what we've said, you can see that all the leaders before him who have been killed, there's a reason why they're being killed, because they want to control our resources. And Ibrahim Traoré and Niger and Mali are saying to the guys, let Africa control our destiny. Let's control what we have. We can deal with you on equal terms, on equal partner level. No, let's determine how we share resources. But for some reason, the West are hell-bent on controlling what's not theirs. So guys, one way or the other, the question that we're going to ask, and I'm asking today, is how do we Africans control, help solidify power behind our leaders? The West of Africa right now, imagine there's 3 countries, 54 African countries. 3 are in alliance together. We have 51 around them. So these 3 countries are basically isolated out of the whole of Africa. Most of these African countries should be in alliance with these other guys, because they're fighting for the rest of Africa. But because the other leaders are so complicit, they're basically sellouts. It tells you that these guys are alone. That's why the rest of Africa, we citizens, we need to basically get behind these 3 and maybe force our leaders, force our governments, push their hands, basically get behind the alliances. And I'll leave it there. I'll let Nduku come in.
Ooh, multitasking at its finest. So the other one I was gonna bring up was Dedan Kimathi. We don't speak of him as much as an assassination, yet it was, right? And he as well is betrayed by someone who's close to him. Wahome is someone who worked closely with him, who he trusted. And they had put mechanisms, and I shared the book in the chat. I was able to go in the chat another way. I shared the book, Kenya's Freedom Struggle, the Dedan Kimathi Papers. I've shared this several times on Kumbukeni, in our classes and in other spaces. This book is a collection of letters by different Kenya Land and Freedom members that was translated by Maina wa Kenyati into English. And so these are the words of the people who were actually in the forests in Kenya fighting the British. These are the words of Dedan Kimathi. It tells you how they organized themselves. And those of us who hear about the Mau Mau, right, because that's the name we hear of them by, we hear of them as savages. Oh, they were savages. They were brutal. But we don't see them as an organized freedom struggle army, which is what they were. They put together their own weapons. They had different stations for each unit. They were required to have a weapon storage where they took different parts and put together weapons, guns themselves, taught themselves. They learned about the plants around them. They had clinics. They used to take care of themselves, medical requirements. When they were injured, they took care of themselves. So they were very organized. And Dedan Kimathi was very organized himself. He wanted everything recorded. He wanted the leaders to follow a certain standard. So despite all of that, there was someone within, because he was promised leniency. This is what they use. And like I said, I've been in these spaces and I know how they operate. They will take people who have a criminal offense, minor or major, and they will tell them, oh, if you, and this is what happened to the Black Panther Party organization, nation, I would call them. They find people within that organization who have some criminal offenses and they tell them, we'll give you leniency if you give us this information. And because people are so self-centered and selfish, and they don't see the big picture, right? They don't see the preservation of the community as the bigger thing other than their own safety. They haven't really understood what liberation is. That liberation means I'm putting my life in the line for my people. So if they come to me and tell me my criminal offense will be taken away so that I can give up my people, hell no. It is better for me to go to jail than give up my people. People are not operating like that. And because of this is why our people are able to be used by these criminal people, entities, to take down our people. So for Dedan Kimathi, Wahome is approached by the British. He's offered some sweet incentives that eventually I'm certain he never got, which is what happens usually. And he gives up Dedan Kimathi's location, because they were very good about moving around so that they would not be detected. And so the British attack Dedan Kimathi, and he does not go down without a fight. He doesn't go down without a fight. So let's all remember that. That's something else to remember about our people. So he doesn't go down without a fight, and they finally shoot him in the leg, they capture him, and they hang him. And that is Dedan Kimathi's assassination. So if you want to take it as a legal death, or he was a criminal, he was sentenced to death, go ahead and take that false narrative of the criminals, the British and the Western entities. Go ahead. But if you're an African who wants to understand your narrative from an African perspective, he was assassinated by the British government with the help of some of his people.
And isn't that then the danger? You know, what is coming across clearly is that we are our own worst enemies as Africans. I mean, I see a comment here saying, what do you think Traoré should do in this situation? And just not only Traoré, but even ourselves, because it almost seems like we're rendered helpless. So what is the solution? I mean, we spoke a little bit about this last week, about the white, the good blacks, the blacks that are ready to sell out. You know, they're more African people ready to sell out than there are people who are going to be revolutionary. I see also Tammy saying that people just are trying to survive. Mam Kanyi?
I don't want to hear people are just trying to survive. That's the most.
Thank you, Mama Kanyisile. Thank you.
Nonsensical statement I have ever heard in my life. Ntsiki, I say this always on your show. People should go and look at my bank account for my age. They must look at the properties that I own, if I even own a property. I think I have suffered a lot to take a stand, whether it was when I was in the Navy or when I worked at Gauteng province or even in the EFF. I sleep with a very clean conscience at night. My bank account, though, is not that clean. It reminds me all the time that I'm a Pan-African. So I don't want to hear people are just trying to survive. So if we are all trying to survive, why did we even expel the colonialists? Why did we bother? If at the end of the day, what matters is our bank accounts and our children's survival. My daughter has suffered so much. But funny enough, she's turned out to be so Pan-African, and I'm glad that all three of you in the show know you and you've heard her talk. But she has suffered so much. She lost the home midway her childhood, had to go and squat with people. She has suffered so much. But I look back and I actually do not care, because it built character in her. She can stand in a room full of 100 white people who are 20 years older than her. She will negotiate and actually argue them down with Pan-Africanism. That's what I'm proud of. I'm not proud that I got a townhouse or a Bentley or a Louis Vuitton. I mean, that's not my style. That's not the legacy I want to leave. So honestly, whoever made that statement, we are in our language, Nduku. You're touching a nerve, because I'm just so tired of these Africans who are emptying African formed banks, are taking all the tenders of government, tenderpreneurs, who can afford to wear brands from head to toe, but they are supposed to be revolutionaries. And then there's some of us who dress at Pep and Ackermans. and then we are supposed to be taken at the same level. Me and those people are at the same level. I refuse. I really refuse. And that narrative, we are all trying to survive. Well, if we're all trying to survive, then goodbye to the struggle. Then why don't the colonialists just come back and rule us all? Because it looks like that's where we are as a race. None of us is prepared to sacrifice. So no, I don't want to hear that. But in Ntsiki, I would wanted to take this discussion to another level, that for me, it's not even how these leaders are killed, as we have been focusing since the start of the show. It is the end state. Imagine a Patrice Lumumba that was the first president of the Congo and was not assassinated. Would we be sitting with the DRC that we are sitting with today? Where someone who rules a country the size of Soweto, Rwanda, can ask DRC today, which finger do you want? Choose one. Because we took out a real leader. And for close to 30 years, we gave DRC Mobutu Sese Seko, who truly, I mean, I wouldn't feed Mobutu Sese Seko to a rat that's dying from Ratex. It would be a disrespect to that rat. Same thing with Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso would be far with this revolution. We took out Sankara and we gave Burkina Faso who? Blaise Compaoré. I mean, who's Blaise Compaoré? In the kingdom of pigs and piglets, who really is he? I wouldn't feed him to pigs too. It would be a disrespect to those pigs. So for me, it's the vacuum that they create purposely that retards that revolution by 100 years back. That's why whoever is tuning in, and I think we have a tuner from Australia, Mahamadi, who's doing his PhD in Australia from Burkina Faso. Whoever is from Burkina Faso, you really should thank your ancestors. You are lucky to have produced two revolutionary leaders within one lifetime. Because if Sankara did not die, if Captain Sankara wasn't assassinated, he would be where? Around his 70s, just under 70. It is still within the same lifetime with Captain Traoré, so you're lucky. Because normally they know that sociologically, a society works like a human body. When you are 14, it will require you another 10 or so years for you to be an adult. Societies work like that. If you take out a leader within this lifetime, it might take you 2 lifetimes sometimes to produce a leader of that caliber again. So look at the vacuum they did in Nduku in Kenya. I mean, frankly speaking, if Jomo Kenyatta was not the first president of Kenya, Kenya would not be sitting with tribal politics, because Dedan Kimathi was not a tribalist, but Jomo Kenyatta was. And I mean, that's the person who laid the foundation for the so-called post-colonial Kenya, riddling it in such ethnic politics. So for me, it's the vacuum they create and the retardation of the revolution that they cause, and how they then give us a lucky or a house nigger that takes us into neoliberalism, actually ruthless neoliberalism, that it takes twice the hard work for us to get the mindset back to a revolutionary mode again. So I think I'll leave it here and give to the next speaker.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comment there. It's quite interesting that African Union has not said anything about the statement. I think we need to understand that the African Union is funded mainly by the hegemonic powers. The Europeans and the Americans fund the African Union. So in terms of our politics on the continent, we don't control it. We're not in charge. So you don't expect those who are funding all the policies, who sit in the room with the house Negroes, like Mark Angley said, to basically do your bidding. The reason why we're doing this today, or the reason why we're focused on these things, just to let our people be aware that for us to be free, and somebody's talking about survival, we can't keep giving excuses, guys. We cannot keep giving excuses. If we don't do what we need to do, what kind of legacy are we passing on to the kids? Are we going to keep complaining? I was complaining 2025. Are we going to complain another 10 years, another 15 years, and we have kids coming, and us not doing the needful to free ourselves? When are we going to get away from the shackles of colonialism and neo-colonialism if we Africans are not prepared to do the work that we're supposed to do? We need to be uncomfortable. Our comfort in whatever way, in the matrix, is not going to free us. we're so into this matrix that basically everybody's about what we're gonna get, the house, the car, all these things. But if you look back in Africa, and I go to Nigeria a lot, and I see poverty all over the place. So the few are kind of trying to get up to that matrix where they have all these little trinkets and mirrors. But down the bottom, people are suffering. And people are talking about, we're already suffering, guys. Because I always say to people, when I look in Nigeria, people are already dead anyway. They're walking corpses. So what else would you want to do to basically bet yourself to do what you need to do? Because basically we as Africans are not living in Africa. We're just there merely to survive the day. But we're a country that's got so much wealth that people come in to enjoy our wealth. And you're talking about survival. Guys, we're not even living. So we need to do the work. We need to be uncomfortable doing the work. Basically, this is not about your house, your car, whatever. There's more that we need to do. Until we're ready to make those sacrifices, guys, things are not going to change. Ibrahim Traoré is leading. You got the three other countries leading, but we need to be behind them. And it's not just about them. It's about collectively us uniting and throwing away the trinkets and all the things that we think are basically giving us succor or comfort. Those things mean nothing when the majority of Africa is suffering. I'll leave it there.
Ntsiki, Oladele, Mama Kanyisile, not to beat this dead horse, but this dead horse does need to be beaten several times. For the person who said some of us are just trying to survive, who the hell do you think is going to stand up for your liberation? Like, who the hell do you expect to be the one who sacrifices their survival, as you call it, right? Since you're trying to survive, who the hell are you waiting to sacrifice their survival so that you can be liberated, so that there are no more Black men and women being shot on the streets or in their apartments, so that there are no more leaders who are upholding the progress of our people being killed, so that there's no more disease in our continent, so that there's no more GMOs in our continent, so that we are self-sufficient and we're producing our own food and we're not dependent on the West. When you say that some of us are trying to survive and not realize how selfish that statement is, who the hell do you expect to fight for your liberation? And then if you actually expect someone to fight for your liberation, shame on you. Shame on you for trying to survive while expecting others to sacrifice their survival. I'm like, that's as much as I will beat that dead horse. Honestly, enough is enough. Like Mama Kanyisila said, several of us are suffering because we are upholding the truth, because we truly believe in liberation and truly believe we're not liberated. And we're not doing this to be martyrs. We're not doing this for your empathy or you feeling sorry for us. We're doing it because it's right. Like I said, when I gave the analogy of Wicked and the witch of the West, Elphaba, she realizes there's a song in the movie called Popular, right? Glinda is telling her, let me teach you how to be popular. Let me teach you how to be popular. Let me teach you how to talk so that the boys can like you. But Elphaba is like, to hell with popularity. No, I have witnessed my professor being shut down. He cannot speak anymore. I went and saw these other entities being shut down. They cannot speak anymore. I'm seeing my people being oppressed. To hell with popularity. No, I am going to choose the route that you all criticize, the route where I am the ugly one, the route where I'm not the popular one, but as long as I'm standing by the truth. And if all of us did this, that's the thing that's frustrating. If all of us did this, we'll be liberated yesterday. But because of selfish people like you who said some of us are just trying to survive, this is why we are where we are. As much as it hurts, that's the truth. I'm sorry. Enough with sugarcoating this nonsense. So Chris Hani. Chris Hani is another one. Chris, Chris, Hani, Hani. And I'll let my sisters speak more to him, especially Mama Kanyisile, because I know Mama Kanyisile knows his story much more in depth than I do. He was not just fighting for liberation. Chris Hani was hitting the white South African oppressors where it hurts. He was fighting for also economic liberation. He wanted South Africa to be gutted, the apartheid of South Africa, literally take away the white capitalist domination, dismantle it, and bring us to rule the economy of South Africa. That's the freedom he was seeking. And because he was hitting them where it hurts, their pockets, and as you've all witnessed, well, for those of you who have witnessed, because I've been told I keep saying you've all, when a lot of us are ignorant. A lot of us are intentionally or unintentionally ignorant. A lot of us are intentionally ignorant, because you turn on something like this and you're like, I'm not going to watch it. This is boring. And then you go and turn on Megan Stallion twerking her behind, and you want to watch that all day, literally all day on rewind. That's the thing that our people want to watch. So intentionally ignorant. And recently, the person who assassinated Chris Hani, I'm not going to mention his name. I was thinking, should I mention his name? Should I not? Whoever decides to can go ahead and mention his name, has been released and has come out and done an interview in South Africa. Sorry?
Out there anyway. You can mention it. It's out there.
Okay. Do you remember the name, Mama Kanyisile?
I do. I hate platforming him. I agree with
Please.
the sentiment that we shouldn't say his name and give life to it. We can just call him the poople.
I'll just give it so that people can do the research and learn more about what's happening. Januts Walus, right? I think that's how you name it. I actually don't care if I butchered it. I would be very happy. Those are the petty pleasures I get out of these criminal entities. So he came out recently, was interviewed, and with a full chest said he does not regret what he did. Now, anyone who wants to tell me that South Africa is currently independent and that the government is working for African people must explain to me why Janus Walus is not dead and 6 feet under for what he did. I'm just going to say it plainly, because that's what the consequence should be. That you're asking for solutions, that's it. You attempt to kill one of us, we kill you. We take you out. It's just as simple as that. That's the solution. You all want to hear some boardroom niceties, politically correct solution? Hell no. Anyone attempts to take out one of our leaders?
Please, can you watch your language? Remember, YouTube can close the channel.
I hear you, sister, but here's another thing, and I'm going to address this because you brought it up. The other day, we have found out now that apparently the word black has been banned. The word woman has been banned. The word DEI has been banned. So if this is another part of the revolution, if we keep allowing these people to move the goalpost as to what words we can use, we're going to end up with no language, literally. So we must take a stand. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we must take a stand and continue to use the words that need to be used for us to understand what's going on. Because if women and black is banned, y'all tell me what language we have left. So now me as a woman cannot talk about myself. And we're going to be like, oh, I don't want to use this word. I'm not criticizing you, Ntsiki, but I'm just criticizing the whole movement of changing our words and using weird acronyms to talk about the thing that we are talking about, the death of the person who has offended us. That's another part of the revolution. We must say no to us being told we can't use certain words because we'll be left with no language. It is bad enough that we're using their criminal language. I'm done. I hope I covered Chris Hani. You know, I got upset. I forgot about covering Chris Hani with justice. Mama Kanyisile, if you can please take over. So he was not just seeking liberation as we understand it. He was seeking much more. He was seeking to remove the white people from control in South Africa, and that's why he was taken out.
Kanye, do you want to jump in? I don't have a problem with these words, but YouTube does. And the danger with revolting here is that they'll close the channel and then we won't have a platform anymore. So we do kind of have to respect the rules of YouTube. Mam Kanye?
Thank you, Ntsiki. You could have jumped in there too, because I know that you know a lot about Chris Hani. I think the fundamental difference with him, Nduku, to our listeners is that he was not about political. He was not about voting, enfranchisement. He was about myself dead in the tracks, and we have political freedom, but not economic freedom. You cannot separate the two; they go together. So if you don't don't have economic freedom, it means you are not free, period. You don't have freedom. And that goes for 51 states in Africa at the moment, except the 3 from the Sahel, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Because politics require money. Politics are very expensive to run. Elections on their own are such an expensive outfit. That's why our leaders are always bought, because they need huge sums of money to run elections. So that's the difference with Chris Hani. He wanted freedom. I'm not going to say economic. He wanted freedom. And at the time, we were all crazy behind the ANC, which was about enfranchisement, the right to vote, not freedom at all. No African country is free except the 3 of the Sahel, which is why there's such hatred against them. You know, NGO money cannot go into the Sahel currently. Mainstream non-governmental organization, I don't care who they are, name them. None of their money can go into the Sahel. Corporates does not go into the Sahel. Governments of Africa do not go into the Sahel. I can't wake up tomorrow, Ntsiki, and say all DGs of health are meeting in Ouagadougou, or all DGs of health are meeting in Niger or in Mali. It's not going to happen. They have been told to be on the red list. Yeah, that's the terminology used. They are red listed. So even if you are studying at university currently, you have a full scholarship, you're doing your master's or your PhD. If it entails doing your research in these 3 countries, they will tell you promptly, we are sorry, you'll have to conduct those interviews online, find a way, but our money is not going in there. So, which is another way they are trying to frustrate the 3 countries and hope that those revolutions in the end will fail. So, yeah, I think I'll leave it there with Chris Hani. I started and went on this tangent because Nduku, we were talking about him. He wanted liberation, he wanted freedom, period. We are not going to say he wanted economic freedom, no, because there's no freedom without the economy. So even that political freedom we claim to have, all 51 states in Africa, it's a fallacy. Can't separate the 2.
What I'm gonna say is back to Makanshila is, guys, I'll say again, we said it on this broadcast and I'm gonna say it again. These 3 countries are basically giving us a blueprint as the way forward. If we want true freedom, true liberation, the rest of Africa and the rest of the other African countries need to basically align with these 3. Because if the more of them join in, you can imagine if the 54 African countries come together, it becomes a shield amongst themselves. It becomes difficult from the external forces to actually basically get to them. But the fact that these 3 are on their own, basically what it does, it exposes them. And this is what Kwame Nkrumah was, another one of the leaders who got overthrown. This is what he was calling for. The African leaders need to come together. Let's form an alliance. Let's form shields amongst ourselves. Let's cover ourselves. Instead of us basically dealing with these hegemonic powers in itsy-bitsy countries, as you know, imagine Benin Republic against the US or Benin Republic against China. If all African countries come as a bloc and deal with these hegemonic powers as one, you know how powerful we are. Guys, it makes sense. A lot of us are basically miseducated in terms of understanding what needs to be done. But we can never, and I keep saying this, we cannot use the systems of the West to free ourselves. It's basically counterproductive. You can see what's happening to Africa. Everybody in Africa is struggling to survive. We haven't got anything. People are suffering. We are hungry in a country, in a continent that's got so much wealth. Make it make sense. And then you have Ibrahim Traoré coming and putting all these places in place. Basically, agriculture. Now they're trying to be self-reliant in terms of agriculture. Free education. Health systems have been put in place. My country, Nigeria, the most populous nation on earth, our health system is shambles. You can't even write home about it. It's how bad it is. Yet we supposedly have government in place. We haven't got a government. So the best thing we can do, and what these guys are doing, is say, guys, look, Ibrahim Traoré is basically at 37 years old, is basically shining a light, telling us this is what's possible. Why are the rest of Africa not following suit? Simply because they're just gatekeepers, sellouts, and they're not there for your benefit. I say emphatically, your 51 African leaders are not there for your benefit, Africans. The more we wake up, the more we understand this, we do something about it. And inaction means complicity. That means we're comfortable in our comfortability. I'll leave it there.
Nduku?
So I was also going to bring this up. And when we talk about Traoré, there's been more than 19 attempts, right? And one just recently, for those of you who are following the news there, last week. Apparently, it was supposed to be on the 16th of April. And they have what they're calling terrorists, right? Who are working with former military, members of the military in Burkina Faso and current members of the military. And I'm glad that they have whoever they've partnered with that's helping them counter these threats and find out about the networks of these people who are being used. So these are people who are paid, and the goal was to create chaos. Listen to that. The goal was to create chaos so that they can justify removing him. That's the goal. That's the goal. And so some of our people are paid to create chaos, and they take them. And we know them. And we know them. And we keep letting them walk this earth freely. Because you all want to ask for solutions. Find the solution in my language as I continue to speak and not use the words that YouTube doesn't want us to use. We continue to allow them to walk this earth freely, knowing them. Like I know Mongewe Kalabaya, the person who belongs to so-and-so who lives there was part of this, and he's still walking this earth freely. So that what does that do? It emboldens others. Oh, this person was able to get paid for doing this and nothing happened to him. Oh, next time it comes to me, I'm going to take it. That's what it does. But if we stop allowing them to walk the earth freely, next time someone is approached, they'll be like, dude, what they did to the other person the other day, I'm not going through that. Hell no, keep your money. We have to create a reason for these people to be so fearful of betraying us that they won't even think about it, let alone doing it. That's the only solution. There's no other solution. You people who like these pretty words and wearing your suits and sitting in conferences and being nice and all these smiles and eating small sandwiches and being nice and smiling with each other. No, there's no other solution. That's the only solution. Don't let them walk the earth anymore if they do this crime against us. That's it.
I'd like to shout out to Mama Kani, who is the one that makes us gather for Sahel Tuesdays. Obviously, as you know, she's the mother of Africa, and that is how South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria are united in the Sahel Thursday. So thank you to Mama Kani. Please do subscribe to Oladele's channel, Our Tabulan Awakening series. He's also got a YouTube channel. And he is a Nigerian man. So we give thanks that we are all united in this. Please also follow Nduku's channel, which is called Kumbukeni. Nduku is from Kenya. So we are gathered here, and we thank once again Mama Kani for uniting, doing all this hard work to unite. So on the last, we're all having our closing thoughts now, because it is, we do only spend an hour, and people work hard and they are tired. So, it's so fascinating because we know these people. We were talking today about survival. Everyone just wants to survive. And some of the people that I went to school with, for instance, it's a bit awkward not to judge them, but I do judge them. But I smile with them, but I judge them. They are more concerned about the private school conversation. So they'll be like, oh, how's St. John's? I took my boy, he's playing cricket. And we had it was the cricket and it's the rugby. And I can just sense the pride and the validation that they feel from having these conversations about. And we're going to have a dinner party with one of the moms Katharina's mom, or so there is like a validation that our people get from proximity to whiteness, even though it's at the expense of our own people. And that is exactly what leads to the assassination and the character assassination of our revolutionaries. So how do we work around this thing where Black people just want to take their boys to cricket and they want to take their children to swimming lessons and they enjoy that? Mam Kanye?
I was laughing when you were talking and hoping I'm not disturbing you because these sellout so-called leaders of our people, they have made followers not to distinguish between a real leader and a fake one. That's why they walk up to you and they ask you, what's wrong with you? What happened to you? Have you not been asked that, Ntsiki? They look at the car you drive and they say, what happened to you? What's wrong with you? Yeah, the revolution happened to me, you old fool. I mean, how could I have been a revolutionary at the level of Sankara or Patrice Lumumba and still be able to drive the latest Bentley and live in a house of 10 million and wear a brand from head to toe? Those things don't go together with being a revolutionary. Guys, where did Thomas Sankara live all his life? People must go and check. Mud house or brick and mortar? You need to look at what is called humility in service. How are you more free than your people? It's never made sense to me. It's like in funerals in South Africa, Nduku. When people come from the graveyard, they have a queue to go and eat. The masses are queuing in the sun. Sometimes the food finishes even before the masses have all eaten. And then they have a special place for all the pastors. These pastors who eat 5 meals a day in their houses are happy to eat before the masses in the sun have not eaten. Some of those people in that queue, that's their only meal in a week or in 3 days, cooked meal. Difference of serving in humility and serving genuinely and just loading it over people. The two are not the same. So, Siki, that's my closing remarks. I don't blame you for judging the people you grew up with. We are the same. I listen to mine and I look at mine and I'm just like, your kids can't even speak an African language and we are happy. Like, what are you raising? Wow, it's a long way to freedom. I think I'm going to leave it there. But thank you to all who tuned in, and we continue to raise information and knowledge about the Sahel. And we continue to say the African Union is a body of sellouts. The fact that there's so many attempts on Captain Traoré's life and the African Union has not even released a statement to say we are against the murder of leaders in this continent tells you also who runs the AU. Thank you, Ntsiki. Thank you for always being there. Thank you for your platform, Moya, and may we subscribe. May we continue to subscribe to Moya.
Okay, my closing remark is going to be the trinkets and mirrors that we all aspire to have. Capitalism is basically what was brought to Africa. This is basically what guided our eyes to want these ostentatious things that we lost ourselves. The moment we subscribe to aspiring to want these things, we Africans, we lost ourselves completely. Don't forget, in Africa, we had everything we needed, which were not ostentatious, we were self-sufficient, we were okay. The moment they brought the trinkets and mirrors to Africa, we now we started aspiring, and basically that is going on in Africa today. I look at my platforms, I look up the LinkedIn platform, people are looking at LinkedIn, all we're chasing after, like we're saying, is the best car, the best house, the best everything. And only a few people can get to that top. Majority are going to be down the bottom. So we completely forget about the ones down the bottom. We're trying to get up there. In the trying to get up there, we lose ourselves down the bottom. Guys, we are a community, a communal being. That's what we used to be like before we embraced capitalism. We work together as a community. Ubuntu, Agbajewola Finsoya, Ajijiwoko Beru Diori is the Yoruba, that's what we call it. We were community beings. Until we get back to being community beings and looking after each other and have each other's back. Guys, I hate to say this, but Africa is always going to struggle. Because the white man's solutions is not our solutions. Our solutions is going back to being authentically African, community-based. That's who we are. The white man's way, the proximity to whiteness is not ever going to save us. You can aspire all you want, you get all the degrees you want, but if you don't get back to community being, we're never going to go nowhere. And that's my closing remark. Thank you.
And just to I don't want to say correct, but to add more to what our brother said, because words are powerful. Africa will not always struggle, but Africa will always struggle if we keep looking to the white man for solutions, if we keep looking to the Chinese for solutions, if we keep looking to the Arabs for solutions, if we keep looking everywhere but within us for solutions, we will always struggle, because all those people do not have our interests at heart. They don't. They have theirs first and are definitely willing to compromise ours to get theirs achieved, which is what we have seen. The evidence is there. That's the thing. The evidence is there in our day-to-day living. The fact that we haven't seen the AU speak up against this, what's going on. The fact that we haven't seen some of the revolutionary leaders, so-called revolutionary leaders that you all want to follow, speak up against this. The fact that we haven't actually seen them. Here's the thing. PLO Lumumba, Arikana, whoever else, I'm going to name names because I'm sick and tired of this nonsense. Because when I say this and I'm criticized, right? All these speeches they give, what are they actually doing with the money that they have to organize? What are they actually doing to organize? They have more money than me. They have more money than Oladele. They have more money than Ntsiki. They have more money than Dr. Kanyisile. The four of us are doing much more locally to organize than they are. So you want to come at me and tell me, oh, Nduku, you want perfection. No. I want leaders who are authentic. Like Mama Kanyisile say, Sankara, when they opened the door to his house, there was a bicycle and nothing much. That's what was found, is that he had no money in his account, like money that we can talk of. Yeah? That is the leader. Traoré we've had is leading the same life where he's not earning excessively, right? Sankara was big on his clothing and the clothing of all government officials being produced within Burkina Faso, right? It's shown a speech of him speaking, and one of the people, the Burkinabe in the audience, is wearing Nike, and he criticizes that, right? So these are the people we're talking about. That's what I want. PLO Lumumba wants my respect. I want to see that, right? And hold me as well accountable. Hold me as well accountable. I want you to hold me accountable, because then you will sharpen the iron that is me to better serve you. So let's stop the nonsense. This nonsense of some of us are trying to survive on Nduku, do not criticize, you want perfection. Someone told me I just became an African the other day. I had to laugh because this person clearly does not understand me. They don't understand that shame has left my head a long time ago. I really don't care what you have to say, as long as right now I am a true African. And thank God I just became an African the other day. Thank God that once I found out the truth, I'm standing our creator, that is, not the male God that you all want to worship. Let me make that clear. I'm not referring to the male white God that I saw a video of Africans, since now the Pope is dead and we are all heartbroken. I saw a video of African bishops going to the front of the church to kiss a white God. You as a black man are going on your knees to kiss a white God. And you're not thinking, I must have lost my mind. That's not hitting you as you get up. What is going on with me? I'm kissing a white man. Enough said.
Yeah, so there it is, Sahel Tuesdays. Please remember that we have moved from Thursdays to Tuesdays. Tell your friends, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we are most thankful for our teachers who come here and sacrifice their time to come and teach us exactly who Lumumba was, exactly who Chris Hani was, exactly whoever was. We just didn't touch on Samora Machel, but I'm sure his time will come with us. Please remember to put Sahel Tuesday on to all your friends in that diaspora. We are the motherland, so the important conversations do have to start with us and right here at us. So it was a pleasure being with you. Once again, thank you again to Mam Kanyi, Oladele, and Nduku for taking their time to bless us with their wisdom and their strength and their feistiness and we are going to see each other. I know I see comment section is going wild. You guys are not ready to end, but thank you to everybody who joined us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And it is always a pleasure to be with you. So we'll see each other next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m., as we unpack some more geopolitics. I couldn't believe today when you said that, what did you say? Somalia is as big as Soweto. I mean, these are things that we're only going to learn here. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.